Everybody, Brett from Heinemann here. Welcome to this evening's Facebook Live conversation with author Lorena Herman and Jose Wilson on textured teaching. With culturally sustaining practice as its foundation, textured teaching helps secondary teachers in any school setting stop wondering and guessing how to implement teaching and learning that leads to social justice. Author Lorena Herman shares her framework for creating a classroom environment that is highly rigorous, engaging, and that reflects the core traits of textured teaching: student driven, community centered, interdisciplinary, experiential, and flexible. Throughout the book, Lorena shares lesson design strategies that build traditional literacy skills while supporting students in developing their social justice skills at the same time. The actionable strategies Lorena uses to bring textured teaching values to life illuminate what is possible when we welcome all types of text, all types of voices, and all forms of expression into the classroom. Lorena Escado Herman is a Dominican American educator focused on anti racist and anti bias work in education. She earned her master's degree at Middlebury College's Breadloaf School of English. She is a two-time nationally awarded educator and featured in newspapers and journals such as the New York Times, NCTE journals, Ed Week, National Writing Project, and Embracing Equity. In addition to textured teaching, which is available now, she published the Anti-Racist Teacher Reading Instruction Workbook. She is a co-founder of the group Disrupt Text and Multicultural Classroom. She is the director of pedagogy at EduColor and is also the chair of NCTE's Committee Against Racism and Bias in the Teaching of English. Hosting our conversation this evening with Lorena is Jose Luis Wilson. Jose is a veteran educator, writer, speaker, and activist in New York City. He is the author of This Is Not a Test, a new narrative on race, class, and education. He has spoken about education, math, and race for a number of organizations and publications, including the New York Times, The Guardian, TED, El Diario, La Prensa, and The Atlantic. He's a national board certified teacher, a Math for America master teacher, and the executive director of EduColor, an organization dedicated to race and social justice issues in education. He is currently a doctoral student studying sociology and education at Teachers College, Columbia University. He is now on the board of directors of the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards and My Power Learning, and we are very grateful to have him with us tonight. Welcome, Jose and Lorena. Before I hand things over, let me just quickly
Good
get
job, Brett. Good job.
Thank you. You're two very impressive people. It's a lot to cover. I want to remind everybody that Textured Teaching is shipping right now from Heinemann.com, and there is still a discount online if you go through Heinemann. The code to get that discount is TT for Textured Teaching, TT2021 2021. If you order from Heinemann.com, you'll also get it faster than if you order from other online sites. You can read a sample chapter and learn more about Lorena's new book. Visit Heinemann.com for more. And with that, I will stop screen sharing my graphic and I will hand things over to Jose. Thank you, Jose.
Jose, I mean, you're kind of a big deal.
Well, you're an author now, so you're an author, homie. Let's get it. Let's go. Let's go.
Right.
We're out here. We're out here. Dominicans represent, Latinos represent. I see you out there. Black people, we out here. Welcome to the show.
You gave him a lot of work right there.
Yeah, I know.
Yours is a lot. Yours is a lot.
I mean, we do some things.
But it's all right, though. It's good.
It's gonna have to be. Brett's like, dang, man. Like,
right. He's like,
this is not five. Listen, it's a book.
Yeah.
Let me show y'all. I'm holding the book because I need folks to. Oh, there's a bunch of you who have T-shirts now, so it's officially a Lorena Herman like fan club because y'all all are rocking her face on your chests, on your bellies. Yo, you are really out here. So look at this wonderful art, and so it's nice and smooth. It's a pretty looking book, but I ain't gonna. Sorry, y'all can't. Y'all gotta go get this book. I can't. But what I did do with this book is I literally took I took Saturday morning and I reread the book because y'all know I endorsed it. And I was honored to endorse it. It was I I just flabbergasted. I mean, y'all remember South by Southwest how we sat there, it was me, you, and Julia Torres, and I was like, okay, so we're gonna talk about Educolor, but really all I'm gonna do is talk about for like 10 minutes and I'm gonna let the stars rock it. And Lorena just gets up there and she does all the things. Like when I tell you at the end of the session, like there were 3 lines. There was 3 people for me and like 20 people for Julia and 20 people for Lorena. And they're like, oh, Jose, that was great. Thank you for I was like, no. Thank you. So when this book came out, I was like, there is something going on here. Like there's something in the like she's on Super Saiyan mode. Like she's really ready to like do all the things. And so I'm asking, imploring everybody to not just get this book, follow her work, really get out there. We have to be in an era where we show love to our people. And Lorena is one of my people, and I'm happy to have endorsed this book, but also in addition to have this conversation. So Lorena, well done. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're supposed to have a conversation.
Right,
And
right.
this book, like
You said you read it in one sitting and you haven't done that in a while. Why did you do that?
okay, so several reasons. One, because I
But
was
you're a
one of,
math teacher.
I mean, I teach students math,
Mm-hmm.
that's,
Exactly.
you know the vibes. Like I've been in an English classroom, I've taught English, but when it came to this book, and this is I'm gonna have you talk more about it, but there's something about sitting with a book for like 4 hours and just saying, yo, this book is actually telling me how I'm supposed to be in the class. Versus what I'm actually supposed to do, so on and so forth, like all the little no, how you're gonna be. So I have my first question is gonna be, why this book? Like, why did you write this book? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, in short, so I wrote it because for a long time there was always I would always hear comments from teachers, not just about me, but just in general. Comments about, oh, that teacher, and it was often us teachers of color, right? They're just so good with those kids. They do that work so well. Like, just send the kid over there, as if what the things that we do are not about hard work and strategy and method, right? As if it's like we have this magical touch in our room and it's just that my melanin attract, like, no. And is there certainly, yeah, there's a shared collective experience that we have, right? Because of our identity in this country. But I also know, and many of us know, educators who are white, for example, right? Who also get down in the classroom and they do this stuff and the kids gravitate and they're there. So anyway, I wrote the book because I kind of got tired of 2 things, of that happening and of people continuing to talk about teaching and social justice and doing right by kids in these very abstract ways and conceptually, which we need. We need the concepts and we need the big ideas. But I was like, but what does this look like tomorrow morning? And I was always like, who's writing about this? Like, who got the strategies? And then I was like, all right, clearly nobody does. And Toni Morrison, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but there were not enough books out there that I could turn to and say, here is a framework, here is what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. And Toni Morrison told me, I mean, she told all of us, but she also told me that if there was a book that I wanted to read and it didn't exist, that I needed to write it. And so I said, well, okay then, ma'am. And so I started essentially documenting. This book is a documentation. This is what it looks like to sit in my classroom, turned steps for teachers.
Y punto. And so what I need y'all to hear that. I need y'all to feel that, okay? And if you got a book in your heart, actually, that reminds me. So you got a book in your heart, You had to
Mhm.
write it. By the way, this is her first big time published because she also has the anti-racist workbook. Yeah, yeah, we gotta put that out there.
Yeah.
And that was God's plan. So there's this book, and it comes at such a crucial time when we're still feeling some of the ramifications um,
Don't say it. Don't say the name.
from all the work that was done in summer of 2020. And that was a time when you had everybody, it felt like everybody was writing a book about racism on some level, about bias on something. Like, also we had to be super duper aware. And we've been trending towards that for at least the last 7 years, if not the last 9. Your book does something different. And so I want to ask, what sets this book apart from so many of the other books that are out there? Mind you, it is not to say that like these other books aren't great in their own right, but this book is special, and I want to hear why you believe that's the case.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's a lot of books out there that we can reference, that we can turn to. And I think that some of what they do, not all, but some of what they do is what I said earlier about presenting either big ideas or arguments, right? Here's an argument for why this thing is wrong and instead how it should be. Here is this big idea, we need to teach with this stuff in mind. And we need those books, and those books are very useful and they're very helpful. And I think that one of the things that's lacking is, okay, how do I take that into my class tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning? Like, what does that mean when I'm going to teach this book right here? What does that mean when I'm going to teach this mathematical concept? And so I think what texture teaching does is that it offers a framework for any teacher in any subject area. Even though my expertise is in ELA, that's where I draw the examples from. I mean, you can tell me, right? As a math teacher, I feel like there's stuff in there that you're like, oh yeah, I could certainly bring that into my classroom, or I can certainly consider this idea, and how that might play out in my lesson design and my structuring of how I'm going to teach this concept. So I think that that is also something to think about when hopefully everybody gets this book. Is that yeah, that's, I think, what sets it apart is that this is a very concrete book. It's got strategies in there. It's got very very useful stuff for you to implement right away.
Right away. So speaking of right away, go get that book right away. Heinemann.com, Heinemann.com, Heinemann.com. Right, that's the fastest way to get it. So, and so like there, you told me not to mention it, but I gotta go there. So there's this one 3-letter acronym that implicates folks like Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw. And then but unfortunately, because of that 3-letter acronym, like all the other 3-letter acronyms have also been implicated as a result in the works of the Gloria Ladson-Billings of the world,
Right.
Django Paris, H.S.
Right.
And of course, all of us who are conscious of our color and conscientized within that color,
Right.
and who aspire to do that sort of thing. And so I'm curious, what led you to lean so hard into the work of Django Paris and Sami Alim? Like, what was the impetus for that, especially in this moment in time?
So, one, I have a close relationship with Dr. Paris. He's a mentor. He's mentored me since I began graduate school and to this day. So I'm gonna rep that work, and that was really transformative for me. Once I learned about CSP, culturally sustaining pedagogy, once I learned about it and understood what it was, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I want to learn how to do it even better. And it just kind of transformed because I learned about it when he published it in 2012, which was when I was hitting year 2 of teaching. So I was starting, he was starting, and I was in my formative part of becoming a teacher, and it was like, boom, this was it, right? So there's that. And so this leans into CSP because that's at the foundation of my teaching. And just because a whole bunch of people have decided that they don't like these things does not mean we're not going to talk about it, and we're not going to rest in this work, and that we're not going to use the important teachings that our academic elders have put forth. So, you know, that's not going to stop me. That does not stop us.
Oh, trust me, we got that. And those of you who are tuning in and aren't familiar with Mrs. Sedman, you will recognize that she is very much an unstoppable force in the ways that she presents. She has been often, I guess, one of the pins, if not the pin, that people attach to the work of Disrupt Texts, especially when it comes to antagonizing and trying to make any number of things about my friend over here. But she comes off as, oh yeah, you're gonna fight, I'm gonna fight back twice as hard. Like, you can't scare me this way. And this is what I love. She is very, like, I am very much like the ocean person who kind of lets it flow. She's fiery. So in that way, I'm very appreciative of the energy. And so I guess for me, like those of us who aspire to be, you know, as fire as you, what does liberation mean? Only easy questions, by the way. Only easy questions.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean? What does it look like?
It's up to you. Take that however you want.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that makes me mad about what's going on right now is how so many terms that have very like legitimate definitions have become these all encompassing catch-all terms that it doesn't even mean that, right? So this book talks about teaching for and about social justice. And I don't mean the cool social justice that people are putting on their t-shirts, the, you know, cool little bio statements that some people have on social media. I'm talking about like the redistribution of wealth and power and access. So to bring justice to our society. So that's what I'm talking about when I say social justice. I almost forgot your question.
What's the version?
Oh, right. So social justice, right? To me, is how we get to liberation. The opposite of liberation is a couple of things actually, but one of them is oppression, right? Because to liberate is to set free, and to oppress is to, you know, whatever, restrict, to remove the air of something too. And so in order for us to get to this point of being free, of not being oppressed, of not having things on us, holding us back, fences, doors, whatever people want to, you know, whatever analogy people want to use, well, then we need to redistribute power, wealth, access, all these things, which will then hopefully, you know, remove all of these limitations, and then we can get to liberation. So it goes together. And then what does it look like? I mean, I think that it looks like, you know, how like, think for a minute, a place that you love, with people around you that you love, with the best possible food, with the best possible drinks, whatever kind of drinks, okay, whatever kind of dessert, like just this place where you are as chilling as possible, where there is no pressure in that, and maybe this is just a moment in that place, right? And there's this moment where you're chilling, you're taking deep breaths, there's no problems in that moment, there's no larger, this social pressure to perform or act in a certain way. There's this peace, you know, where, and for me, that involves a spiritual component too. That moment, I think, right? Because we have to dream. We don't really know what this is. I think that is maybe what liberation feels like.
Okay. So, and it's so interesting that you mentioned all that, because I'm thinking about how so much of what is considered liberation, it can be detrimental if you're not really thorough with what liberation means. Too often in a very like hyper connected world, in the ways that we put the internet out there, where we get access to all these different tools, and often like the tool, there was this quote, the tools that the master has can never dismantle the master's house. But I feel like now we have so many dang tools, we can't either A, decipher which ones are the masters, or B, that now they're just all the masters. And so now we got to come up with a whole new set of things, which I will say too, you have also very much tapped into consistently in your book. This idea that like there's this thing that I'm consistently trying to reach, even though I've never been there before, I'm gonna get there because I'm doing this. So because I'm being ambiguous, I'm gonna give you the question that I have for that, which is, what is the work?
Oh, I mean, I actually define it in there, but
Right.
yeah, no, a lot of people are using the whole this work, the work, right? We talk about this. That's why you're laughing.
Yeah.
Um, so, gosh, what a big, Jose, you hit me with like very big questions. All right, fine.
It's a nice book. Go hard.
So the work is ongoing. It is daily. One of the things I think about, one way for me to answer this too, there's a verse in the Bible that says, because peace is this thing that everybody, just because I was talking about peace is this thing that people think they're like, they go to a place and they find it there in that room and like, oh, let me live here and this is peace, right? But the Bible says, seek peace and pursue it. So we got to seek and pursue. It's a lot of work to seek and pursue.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't know that peace is a place, and I don't know that peace is a thing we come back and, back and forth from. I think that we're ongoing trying to find it, trying to create it, trying to build it and nurture it. And I don't know. I mean, anyway, so I'm going in all kinds of directions, but the work I think is that journey, is that process. Okay, the work is that process. The work is not a place where we're going to go and arrive at. The work is the journey to get to the place. And that's why it's messy, because like we're all in different cars, right? Let me use this analogy. We're all in different cars. And so you might be in an automatic and somebody else is in the car where they're shifting gears and doing all this. Somebody's in a car with a broken muffler. Somebody in a car, in a pickup, driving on the side, not even on the highway. So, everybody's doing all these things. And so certainly I don't think that it's necessarily very helpful to look over and always be on this critiquing tip. And I think there's also like a level of accountability, right? Like, okay, guess what? I'm in this car, you're in this other car. I'm not going to necessarily tell you how to drive, but if the way you're driving is messing it up for everybody else who's trying to get on the side, then we got a problem. We have a problem. So I'm going to need you to get it together, because like, drive how you want to, but your freedom ends where mine begins. And so, we got to make that part work. So the work, that's why people have really turned to this phrase, which I think is useful. I mean, I use it. I think it is useful. But like the other terms that I said before, it's become a catch-all, and its ambiguity allows people to say and do all kinds of things that like ain't the work. Because then you got people who are like, no, I'm cleaning the light bulb. And like, well, you're not moving. You're doing. What are you doing? We're moving. Move. Avanza, camina, vamos a ver.
And the light be off sometimes too, and you're like, so
you're not even polishing the light bulb.
You're not gonna.
You're just chilling on a ladder.
Oh, you just got to turn on the light switch? No, that's it. Bruh. Oh man. And of course, this is See, and I love that because there's a strong conversation happening right now around activism and whether it should be like as
Right.
publicized and all that other stuff. I'm always curious about, like at what point do we get to the part where everybody says, all right, this is what we need to be doing, because otherwise, like, our individual choices are fine, but they can never ever dominate institutional racism. They can never dominate institutional negligence unless we collectively come together and say, okay, our individual pieces are what we're supposed to do, but they should be in the service of this collectivity that we kind of bring together, which I think is what, again, that textured teaching a
Mm-hmm.
lot, because you're not by yourself in your classroom,
Right.
right? The decisions that you make ultimately affect what everybody else does. But if you can't like be in that texture, you kind of feel yourself being like, you know what? Oh, I'm all by myself. I'm just gonna make this one little thing and that's it. But meanwhile, you have a teacher who says, all right, I'm gonna be textured about what I do, which means that I'm gonna engage the mess. I'm messy. Oh yeah, I'm definitely problematic. Bring it all in. I want to see the whole thing, and so I'm gonna get all these students to get in their own mess and get really grimy about what they're doing, which I think
Mm-hmm.
this book alludes to so hard, and it takes somebody who can see that texture from not just like the macro level, but also like the granular things to make them really work well together. Um, and so I like what you had to say there. And of course, in the service of the next question, because I got so many, um, there's this part where you mentioned we must teach like our lives depend on it.
Right.
I think one of the unfortunate ramifications, of um, what we've seen in the last maybe 7 to 10 years is that everyone's asking us not to make the goal to survive, but to strive, right? But after, like during COVID, I was like, we haven't even gotten to surviving yet. Like, we need to get to the point when like we don't have these racial disparities, which unfortunately they're baked into the system, right? Like, when we get to that part where you say, oh, like all things are equal, but they're not equal yet.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to make it so that we teach like our lives depend on it? I know you said it in the book, but it's
Yeah.
worth everybody hearing about it.
No, and I think that there is something to be added there to flesh that out a little bit. And what I want to do is go back to what you said about, collectivity. Um, if it's true, parentheses, and it is, close parentheses. If it's true that that my freedom requires your freedom and that your freedom requires my freedom, then I have to function that way, right? And I never mean to say that educators are responsible for racism or that teachers are the sole ones that can solve it. No, absolutely not. Every institution in this country has to do their part. I talk to teachers. I don't talk to plumbers. I don't talk to pilots. Okay, I don't talk to, I guess say doctors. I talk to teachers, and so I talk to us about how we are implicated, how our ways and how our profession is implicated. And so that's it. I work, this is my, this is my box and I stay in this lane. Now, or so, when teachers go to their jobs, they go to the school that they work in, maybe it's the community that they don't live in, or it could be one that they do live in. But if they don't understand that, or acknowledge, recognize that the young people sitting in front of them are going to be the ones leading this country very soon, right? If you don't recognize that who you are teaching right now is the future mayor, clerk, secretary, pilot, chef, business owner, like if you don't see that that's who you're teaching and teach them with respect, right? Then what we can then not, as older people, critique them. We did this.
Mm.
And so we have to teach like our lives depend on it. We have to teach like, if I don't do a very good job with these young people, then the biases that society has been teaching them, the things that they are believing about other people, right? Like if I don't take care of that, then that will continue. And we're going to continue having people who look at other people and think fear and shoot, or think, you know, you shouldn't be here, and put them in a cage, right? Like if we don't start teaching in a way where that doesn't happen anymore, then we're going to be in the same place that we're at. You know, that's why I was frustrated the other day when I saw certain tweets and I saw certain articles, and I was like, I really don't want to hear people in 10 years talk about how did we get here, right? Because right now people are like, how did we get here? And in 2016, they were like, I don't understand. This is not who we are. This is who we are. This is who we've been. In 10 years, just look back and remember, this is how we got there. And so what did you do now, right? And so that's what I mean when I say we have to teach like our lives depend on it, because quite frankly, our lives depend on it. We're not teaching this metaphorical future. We're literally teaching the people in front of us who are about to lead the future. And I don't know that enough teachers around the country see their students that way. You know, like there's this ageism too that's involved of like, these are kids and this is where they're at, and you know, whatever later. And right now, this is who they are. And they only see them through those limited, you know, ideas. But like, that's not what this is. They're sitting in, the future is sitting in front of us. That sounds super like cliche and corny, but like that's just the truth, you know?
That's facts. I mean, for one, Lorena's not gonna tell you, but she forgot to put the part where she says, "All right, and we told you so." Like, don't let it not be said, because you know, for all the racist email that often comes into Lorena's inbox, that marks every single time she told y'all so. Like, that is facts, and it's not just from people who, you know, are overtly racist out there. It's also the folks who, you know, show up to the professional development and maybe only give 1 star, or ask that one question where you're like, where's that coming from? And you're like, what is this? Or the folks who only want to buy books from dead white men instead of there are levels to this. And so what I was grateful for in this book is how you make culturally sustaining pedagogy come to life. And this is with all due respect to so many different people, but there's the difference between like academia and scholarly work. I mean, y'all heard the bio. Yes, I dabble in academia. But there's an element here where, you know, at some point we have to start seeing, you know, the folks like, you know, Mrs. Hedman and so many other educators who are currently in the classroom. I'm thinking about Matthew Kay. I'm thinking about a number of people, you know, the Liz Kleinrocks of the world, folks who are current classroom practitioners as experts in their own field and their own profession, in the work that they do. And so we can't consistently say, well, we have to study the issue and we have to create frameworks for these teachers who are our objects that we're going to be writing for. No. Like, we have a practitioner who wrote something about this thing that she does. Yes. And so the question that someone did have, and thank you, Clarence Moore, from Renee Moore, I believe. Shout out to Renee Moore.
Hey, Renee.
Hey girl, hey. Given the many similar terms applied to this type of work, culturally relevant, culturally engaged, what made you adopt culturally sustaining? Talk more about what that means in the context of the classroom.
Yeah. No, that's of course a great question from Renee Moore. I mean, again, going back to the issue of people just saying, using all kind, not really knowing what these terms are, right? Like when the whole CRT thing started, like, no, don't teach CRT. You had a whole wave of teachers who were like, I teach CRT. First of all, you don't teach CRT. Second of all, you're talking about culturally relevant teaching, which is what you use to teach, but you don't go into 3rd grade room 444 and teach them CRT. So that's a mess. But anyway, how did I end up at CSP? How did I end up at CSP? So like I said earlier, right? Like I learned directly under Django Paris. And so that, you know, that's my bias, is that I was right there listening as he was formulating the ideas and talking about it, and in the very early stages of it. And so I really understood the aim, the direction, where it was headed, and I was able to bring it right back with me to the classroom and start honing it in my own practice. And so that's how I ended up there. And then I've stayed there because what I appreciate about CSP is that it doesn't try to tell me how. It wants me to be very sure and clear about the why. So I appreciate that in the book Culturally Sustaining Pedagogies, y'all can copy it. I appreciate that it's a collection, it's an edited collection. So you have a whole bunch of different people, both in school and out of school spaces, talking about the ways that CSP applies in their context, the reasons for CSP. It makes arguments for CSP. It makes arguments and shares a lot of conceptual ideas and some concrete stuff too. So I appreciate the way that it is written, again, in like, this is the idea, this is how some people are doing it, but really ultimately the why you need to walk into a classroom, why you need to choose the things you do, why you need to make a decision on this approach. Like, I just feel like it really speaks to the heart of the matter, the heart of the teacher. And so I've stayed there in terms of couching this whole framework in CSP. I feel like it gave it the foundation that it needed, and I've been able to, use it to walk.
So, mess indeed. And of course, I should also mention, because everybody needs to know, is when it comes to the actual theory that was cultivated by a multitude of lawmakers, especially Renee, Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw, what you'll notice is that if I were to explain it to a third grader, it would basically say, one, racism actually exists and it was baked into so many of our laws and institutions, and two, that we can change it. That's critical race theory. So obviously there's all sorts of nuances, so on and so forth, but we're talking about, I'm a pedagogue. So if you ask like, oh, a 7-year-old wants to know what CRT is, that's what it is. All right, great. So now that we covered that part.
Move on. We have moved on. The other thing is they're trying to act like, oh, it's the monster. It's outside. It's going to get us and it's going to eat us. Well, guess what? It's been around since the 70s and it hasn't eaten you since. So what are you talking about?
What a life.
We could go on for days.
And of course, we got a bunch of a bunch of mentions and notifications that are super racist in our spaces for merely mentioning those folks. But I'm not going to give them too much energy because, the block button is right there. And so here's something. There was a way that you went quite left in some of the way that you wrote about this work, which is to say, you talked about white supremacy culture. Like you had into, and this is the thing. If y'all don't know Lorena, by the time that you get to that part, you will learn her. And so this is, very few folks will actually say, like, name a thing, and then talk about the little elements of those things. And of course, like, people are gonna take offense because it's like, oh, but I'm white. Like, am I a white? Well, maybe. I mean, let's have the conversation. Like, read this carefully. And so here's something. When it comes to the classroom, how do you dismantle white supremacy culture? Like, what does that look like? Give us maybe even like 1 or 2 examples, because people really need to know and they need to verbalize for them.
Yeah, I mean, I break that down in now I can't remember which chapter, Jose. Was it chapter 2? I don't know.
Let me look at the book.
I don't know. It's in one of, maybe it's the last one. I don't know. So I do break it down pretty thoroughly. That section, just to be el 100%, right? I hesitated because I was like, do I add this? Do I incorporate this? Like, it will cause a little bit of a fire. Do I want this fire? I don't want this fire. Or smoke, as the children say. So I really did I went back and forth a little bit. Ultimately, of course, I did it because goodness.
Fuego, fuego, fire, fuego, fuego.
It is one of the sections that got me a little nervous still. Like, oh my goodness, what are people gonna say? And honestly, I don't even know that it's that controversial, but you know, it is to a whole population. So anyway, there's that. So I just want to put that on the table. You know what it looks like. I think this is why I like the work of Tema Okun and other people like her who have named and itemized white supremacy in concrete ways, right? Because it feels like this air we breathe. It just feels like this intangible way, right? Like I can walk into a place and be like, this place is white. Who white? J-U white. Okay? Right? Like and you'll have the same reaction. And you walk in and you'll be like, oh, and it just smacks you in the face. You're like, I smell it, right? But it's so hard to show it to someone who can't see it. Whether, and it doesn't even have to be white folks, right? There's folks right here among us who are like, this is how I was raised. This is what I've been around. And they don't necessarily know how to itemize it too, right? And so I appreciate the work of itemizing things because then, you know, you give me this and with the way my brain works, I'm like, boom, let's apply. Let us analyze, break it down, and apply. And so I tried to do that in that section where I said, these are some of the traits of white supremacy culture. This is kind of how it shows up in the classroom. And one of the ways that comes to mind right now immediately is the ideas that we have around behavior and discipline, right? What constitutes as a good student, which too often, particularly for kids of color, is not about intellect. It is fully about behavior. You know, when I think about, for example, some of the honors classes or AP classes that I myself was a student in, or that later on I you know, found myself in as a teacher, very rarely were these young people who were actually who would have performed well, let's say, on this AP exam, not to their detriment, but because that's a whole nother situation. But my point is, right, my problem is the exam. But my point is that they had been placed in these classes, some of them, because they're well behaved, because they listen, because they'll do homework, because they don't act up. And so therefore you're a good student and you move to this honors class. And the kid is sitting here and I'm like, you are not even academically ready to actually get to this content. And so, you know, that's problematic on a number of levels and it raises a whole bunch of issues, but that's one way that we see it show up. We also see it show up when a kid is told, you're not gonna be able to walk across the stage for graduation because of the way that your hair naturally grows out of its head, right? Whereas in another country, it's like, sí, Jose, ven, camina por aquí. Go ahead and walk across the stage. Because why would I penalize you for that? For the way God made you? Like, that don't make no sense, right? You know, we see it show up in the ways that, and I'm going to stick to discipline for now, just because it's something I've been researching and looking into a little bit. We see it in the ways that punishment is mitigated in schools, right? We see the way that Black girls are pushed out. We see that in some schools, suburban, predominantly white ones, you don't really have cops like that. You know what I mean? Like you might have like security and it's Fred, everybody knows him and he's real nice, right? That dude is not the one over there in those schools where you're in the city, you know, in communities of color where kids are color. That's not the nice guy. We get the other dude who's ready to nuck if you buck or buck if you know, whatever, you know, he's ready to knock somebody down. He's ready to arrest. He is ready to call for backup. It's a whole different vibe and situation, you know. Now, granted, are our schools, you know, struggling in a whole bunch of ways? And so it is contextual, right? There's a context for why we do have violence in our schools that those schools don't necessarily have, but they have other things over there. Okay,
Mm.
they have a whole slew of other things, but those things aren't seen as bad as these things. This is seen real bad, and it's dealt with in a way that sustains this notion of white supremacy, which in its very literal definition is simply that white over others, white culture, white ways, white all things over everybody else. That's what it is, supreme, right?
I I love this. And by the way, if you're watching, and especially if you're watching on Facebook, feel free to just type in a couple questions. I am reading them and getting them relayed to me. I also want to highlight too that you talk a little bit about the worship of the written word, which
Mhm.
connects so much to the work that you've done with digital text, even in all the spaces that you've been in. When you even think about the classroom and how too often people worship the written word because, of course, like that's the way that you communicate things. You're
Right.
supposed to write them down on paper, and so those of us who decide that we're going to, I don't know, use music to do it or to just memorize off the top of our heads or this, that, and the third. Like people are surprised when they don't see a speech written out, for example, on paper, but they see just somebody talking about how they generally feel about something. And so what I'm curious about for you is like there's something about making assessment because this is not a test, duh. Um, there's something about making assessment more
Yes.
humane in your
Mhm.
book. Like it's not enough to say, yo, like for one, like people say, well, we have low standards because we don't want
Right.
high stakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not the way it is. It's more that we're trying to be more humane about it. So there are just so many ways in your book that you talk about assessment that are frankly refreshing and still feel thorough. So can you talk a little bit about how we can make assessment more humane and what are your approaches in the classroom to make that look more humane as a result?
Yeah, I mean, so, I grew up, so my class in high school, standardized testing was not a requirement for graduation yet, but we were guinea pigs. And I remember distinctly sitting in the cafeteria for hours on end, for like 1 or 2 weeks, um, where we talk about instructional loss, okay, and learning loss, but that kind don't matter. No, not that one.
Mm.
Anyway, put a pin in that. So, you know, and we just sat there for hours, Jose, practicing testing. We were the guinea pigs. We were the ones that were the baseline data, okay, used for No Child Left Behind later. Anyway, so my experience with the limitations of assessment were very visceral. Like I have memories of that. I still don't do well testing, and I do believe that it's because of the narrow way that testing has become, right? The narrow way that it has developed and evolved in our schools. I remember going back to graduate school, and my biggest concern was like, is there a test to get in? If so, I'm not doing it. Like I'm not going. And once I'm there, is it all just essays? Like that's it? There's no other form of intelligence. There's no other form of demonstrating my learning and that I get it. And like, can I rock an essay? I can rock an essay. But I'm like, is there more though? Is there opportunity for me to shine in other ways? And I remember taking a course with Dr. David Kirkland, whom you know,
Yes.
and that class, that was also in like year 2. So not only do I have Dr. Janko Paris, but now I have Dr. David Kirkland. And I'm like, that's it. Basically, I'm a revolutionary in education. Uh, and so I'm in his class. Matter of fact, I still have work from that class because he was like, boom, this is the skill, show me. And I was like, oh, I could just do whatever. Okay. And I would sit there pouring over work, because I was like, I have this thing in my mind. Okay, I have this idea. I'm a very creative person, like, or I mean, visually creative. Okay, like I make sense of things, visually, spatially, and so I was able to like legit with my hands and construction paper and glue. Like I was out here, okay, in my 30s talking about stick this on this thing, and he's watching me in the library, and I'm like, don't come. I'm in the zone. I'm working. Anyway, all of that is to say that really shifted my understanding of the potential for assessment. I'm a big fan of a combination of things. I'm a big fan of a student saying, I'm going to write about this, but then I'm also going to visualize it, and then I'm going to talk to you about it, right? And it's like, boom, break it down all the way, you know? And when I think about our society, right, because I'm not thinking necessarily, oh, I'm preparing you for the workforce. No, I am preparing you, though, to be the best you can be and participate in our society in whatever way that is. And so let's say one of my students decides to go into marketing. What is the 5-paragraph essay going to help them with? You go 5-paragraph essay your way into a logo. How you going to do that? Right? How you going to create a model for a company? You need precision, right? You need to understand word choice, right? Like, this is much more than me fleshing out these 5 paragraphs. You decide to go work in Germany. They don't even know what a 5-paragraph essay is. They're like, who is that? Right? Like, and that's part of even us in the United States continuing to think that we have the answer. We have the best way to write, and it's a 5-paragraph essay. Now, do I think it's valuable? Sure, it's a form of writing. Do it. But like, it ain't the only way. It ain't the only way to assess or for me to understand what your learning has been. And so, yeah, I mean, I talk a lot in there about different examples, all types of assessment that I have used, the welcoming of various types of texts. When you welcome different types of text and you broaden, right, your definition of text, then you are able to welcome people who traditionally were not included because they didn't write or sound the way that the traditional voices have sounded. I think, for example, Jose, I don't know how much you know about Quieres Learning Center, and they're in New Mexico. It's a school that is still growing. Look them up, y'all. Quieres Learning Center, founded by Trisha Moquino. It's an indigenous school. I can't remember exactly. Well, Quieres is the language, but I can't remember exactly what their name is, their tribe name. But my point is, one of the things that I've learned from listening to her and from just supporting that school is that language is everything there, and their language is not written like ours. So how am I supposed to go over there and be like, I'm going to assess you here, write a 5-paragraph essay. Here, write a paragraph. Give me a topic sentence with 3 evidence sentences and a concluding sentence, right? Like, if I were to do that, it's going to be problematic at best, right? I'm going to not assess in a way that is thorough and adequately. I'm not going to meet their needs. I'm not going to support them or sustain their life ways and how they function as a group, you know? And that's actually very white supremacist of me to go and do that, right? I'm going to be sustaining that type of culture and that approach.
Okay. You know, we could keep doing this forever.
I know.
And I want to highlight for everybody that, there's still this book that y'all need to
you can order it. Yeah, pre-order.
Buy the book. Look at this face. Look at this face. You could get this on a shirt, y'all. But more importantly, you can get this at Heinemann.com. They'll ship it to you super duper fast. It's a great read. You can really sit down and just let her talk to you through a book, which is bananas. And of course, I've done a professional development with her, and it's always like, oh yeah, he has the bigger resume, but she's got all the things.
Oh,
like, she's got this. Yo, y'all really listen. I ain't lying. I'm not lying. There's something else about this book that I kind of want to tap into because I know who the audience is, and that's, the minute you open the book, it doesn't just feel like you're talking as you, but it's almost like you're harnessing the power of ancestors from before. You are generous with the citing. You are generous with tapping into all the voices you've heard, not just your students, but also people who are in your inner circle and all the other rings that are outside of that. And of course, like I hear Roberto in your work. I hear, Annalise, my faves, Zion and Soul. I hear these people. I hear all the Escotos. I hear all of y'all. And so what did family mean to you during this process? Because I hear them. Like, I feel like they're in the background while you're talking to me in this book. So can you tell me a little bit more about how family came into this processing for your book?
Yeah. I mean, you know, selfishly, I do this work, right? Using that phrase. I do this work for all of us, for education. It's my contribution to the field. It's my way of saying, hey, there's a problem in education, and here are my 2 cents, and here's how I can help. And selfishly, I'm also doing this for my own children. You know, they I want school to be a positive experience for them, just like anybody else, right? Everybody wants that for their kids. But not everybody's kids are at risk of being suspended or expelled or knocked down by a security officer, right? Not everybody's kids is at risk of getting stereotyped by a teacher and not promoted or tracked in this other direction, right? Not everybody's kids is at risk of being seen as a threat, right? Or as someone that you're at risk of getting arrested instead of like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to help someone, right? Not everybody's kids are seen that way. And so, I am selfishly also in it and doing all of this to make schooling better for them. So yeah, you maybe you hear that. I guess you do. That is so at the surface for me that clearly it came out
Oh yeah.
fine, I guess.
I mean, don't play yourself. It's facts.
And you also hear, the me from high school. I think there were moments, and I remember talking to you and Julie about this, and a couple of other people, my friend Hineda, like how writing some of this um really required me to go back into moments of difficulty and pain from my own education, right? Because what I've done is taken my own negative experiences and simply channeled them into good. Right? Like I could have turned out and been like bitter and been like, I will never go back to a school and whatever, and become a nemesis of public education. But I didn't, and I chose to channel it into productive change. And so you in this book you hear too that younger student, and that younger student was always also thinking about her peers, my friends, folks that I'm still friends with now, folks that I still catch up with, folks that are still in my heart. So yeah, you hear a lot there. Um you also hear the the sacrifice of ancestors, of elders, of grandparents, of parents. You hear that too, uh, of feeling like I've done some achievements that I'm sure make them proud. So there's you hear a lot there.
Everybody, please give it up for your favorite educator's favorite educator, Lorena Hedman. She's really
Mm,
out here. Please go get this book. I know there's a public service announcement.
I
Um,
know.
in, ad- in addition to Lorena being one of my favorite people out there, she is an actual verified educator. She's really out here in the streets, and I really need y'all to follow her. Do your best to catch up with all of her work. Like, you get this book, you're going to be so thankful for
It's
having spent
generous.
that time with. Nah, stop playing. Like, don't be humble about this one. We're gonna brag this out, and so Dominicans are really out here. Latinx people are really, Black people are really out here.
Mhm.
People who are doing the work are really out here, and I want to thank you all for your time. I want to thank Heinemann and Lorena Hedman for having me on. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
y'all.
Jose. Thank you for doing this with me. Appreciate you.
All day.
Thank you both. Tremendous gratitude coming in through the comments for you both, for your time tonight and for your authenticity and for just everything that you're giving us tonight. So eternally grateful to the two of you, Jose for hosting the conversation and Lorena for your time and, of course, for the gift that is this book. I want to remind everybody that Texture Teaching is available right now. Jose mentioned it a few times from Heinemann.com. We're shipping now. There is still a discount code if you order through Heinemann.com. The code again is TT2021. That's TT for Texture Teaching 2021 for the year that it's published, of course. And we're shipping right now from Heinemann.com. So you're going to get it faster from Heinemann.com than you will from other online vendors. You can also hear Lorena read this book to you. Her voice is a gift, and we have it recorded. And you can hear it on our audiobook, which we've just handed over to the distributor, so it should be up in your preferred audiobook vendor in the next week or two. Lorena and I will share the word about that once it's officially out, but be looking for that in the next couple of weeks. And, of course, if you want to hear more from Lorena, she is on the Heinemann podcast this Thursday. And you can read a sample chapter from Texture Teaching over at Heinemann.com, which is available for you right now. Again, tremendous gratitude to you both. I would encourage you to go read the comments. It's a lot of love for both of you. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and we're gonna sign off. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, y'all.